After the failure of Sonic 06, Sonic creator Yuji Naka resigned from Sonic Team to form his own company. Learning from their mistakes, Sega gave Sonic Team free reign and no time constraints to produce the next Sonic game in the series. During the development of Sonic 06, Sega was already looking forward. As early as 2006, Sega had began work on the Hedgehog engine. The Hedgehog engine compressed animation and game assets in order to allow for faster action. Consider it modern-day blast processing.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do?
Motion blur, particle, and lighting effects were all enabled by its development. Sonic Adventure 3 was intended to be the first Sonic game to use this engine. During Adventure 3's development, focus began to shift solely to Sonic. Although Sonic was redesigned in 1998, his model changed from game to game. So, designer Sachiko Kawamura was tasked with creating a uniform Sonic model that would be recognizable to all players. A balance was found between classic and modern Sonic. Personally, I love the way this iteration of the character looks, and even to this day, this is the model that Sega uses for Sonic the Hedgehog. Eventually, the title was dropped in favor of Sonic World Adventure. The game would see Sonic travel to real-world inspired locations. Although Sonic became the sole focus, the director of the game wanted to surprise players by making Sonic a little bit more wild than usual. This birthed the concept of the Werehog, a transformation Sonic would undergo at night. It's a shame they didn't go with this design because he's the floofiest! This new transformation led to another title change, Sonic Unleashed, but the title remained Sonic World Adventure in Japan. Sonic Unleashed was released worldwide in November of 2008.
By day, he runs rings around the world. But when night falls, things get a little hairy.
New features include a song by the lead singer from Bowling for Soup. Bowling for Soup! A revamped gameplay style featuring the Quick Step, which allows Sonic to quickly move from side to side. The Boost, which replaces Sonic's traditional spin dash. A Stomp ability, which allows Sonic to slam himself directly downward. Bowling for Soup! And a revised homing attack, which uses a button separate from the jump button and features a new target for accurate jumping. Gameplay switching from 2D to 3D perspectives, and a completely new play style as the Werehog. I've never really been a fan of Sonic Unleashed. When the game came out, my Xbox would frequently red ring, and I remember getting bored with the Werehog stages. Between my boredom and the Xbox I owned being a pain in the ass to use, I just sort of dropped it. But here we go. The game begins with Sonic boarding Eggman's spaceship fleet. In space. Sonic kicks ass at what has got to be the coolest opening to any Sonic game yet. Eggman is confronted by Sonic, but he's like, "I got you!" Sonic then reveals he had the Chaos Emeralds the whole time, and turns super. Eggman's like, "Oh no," but then he was like, "It was a ruse!" As he traps Sonic, and Sonic's like, "Ah." Eggman drains the Chaos Emeralds of their power and fires a super weapon toward the Earth. The Earth just shatters, which releases a sleepy being known as Dark Gaia. Eggman's really happy about this. Dark Gaia's release causes Sonic to transform into the Werehog. Eggman unleashes Sonic out of the ship, and the title shows up at the perfect time. He was just unleashed! Sonic plummets to Earth and lands on this cute thing who has amnesia. Sonic eventually names him Chip in reference to his discovered love for chocolate. Sonic sees that Tails is in danger, and he rescues him while in Werehog form. Tails is like, but Sonic is like, "No, dude, I'm so cool." Tails introduces Sonic to Professor Pickle, who explains that in order to put the world back together, get Sonic back to normal, get the band back together, and get Chip's memory back, Sonic and Chip must place the Chaos Emeralds inside several temples around the world. Sonic and Chip collect Gaia keys to unlock the temples and place the emeralds inside, which restores the world. After 6 of the 7 pieces of the world are put back together, Chip begins to regain his memory. He remembers that he is Light Gaia, a being that battles with Dark Gaia every few million years or so. Dark Gaia tears the world apart, Light Gaia puts it back together. It's sort of their alternative to Puzzle Night. The reason why Chip had amnesia is because Eggman woke them up too early. Sonic and Chip infiltrate Eggman Land, which is surrounding the final temple. Eggman releases Dark Gaia and demands that it crushes Sonic. But once again, Eggman is betrayed by a giant fucking monster. Once Chip and Sonic are ready to meet their end, Chip calls upon the power of all the temples, along with the Chaos Emeralds, to build a giant fucking mech. Sonic turns super and the final battle ensues. Chip saves Sonic and they go back to sleep for the next million years or so. Sonic keeps Chip's necklace in remembrance and runs off with Tails because Chip was just his side bag. I have to admit, I enjoyed the game's story. My overviews are just to give context, so I can't recreate its charm. Part of the reason the story works is because of Chip. His optimism and quirkiness helps keep levity to what is already a bizarre story. Look at his little camera. I mean, the Werehog concept is ridiculous, but I've grown more accepting of the concept itself. I mean, just regular Sonic is bizarre when you think about it long enough. It's relieving to get a story that's not split into separate chapters, and it's able to shine because of it. Sonic being forced to help Chip allows the game to tell Chip's story while keeping Sonic involved. Here's the thing about Sonic stories. Sonic is a brand icon. Having true character development means you change the character. Just look at the one time they tried to do it. I know a big complaint with the series has been that there are too many characters, but adding a character to the game allows there to be a character-driven story. People remember Shadow, Silver, and Chip because they were the main characters of the games they were introduced in. Sonic is just sort of the vehicle to tell their story. These would-be one-off characters allow for the games to have a story without conflicting with the main cast. And here's a simple thing I noticed about this game, and maybe it was an idea Sega had if they continued with plot-heavy Sonic games. Water, fire, earth. We're only missing one elemental giant fucking monster. Although I enjoyed the story, I was often taken out of it due to the voice acting. The conversation of Griffith versus Drummond is a conversation for another day, but Chip. I'm not a purist. I'll never listen to a Japanese dub unless I'm just curious about it. But listen to Chip's English voice actor.
What is my name? I don't know. I can't remember.
Now his Japanese voice actor.
なんだっけ？わからない。思い出せないよ。
What happened? He was adorable. I think Sonic's protective nature and immediate desire to help Chip works better if Chip is perceived as a little kid. Even the name Chip works better because of his love for chocolate. It becomes so much cuter. But when all is said and done, the story works for what it is. If you want to get a taste of the story's fun and quirky tone, check out Night of the Werehog, a short that was produced by Sega's Marza Studios that is actually helping with the animation for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which is scheduled to come out next year. Here's something interesting. There was actually a Sonic Unleashed game for mobile. I mean, like, flip phone mobile. It was officially licensed by Sega and developed by Gameloft. It featured custom sprite art for both Sonic and the Werehog. Unfortunately, it's very hard to track down. The more you know. Throughout the game, Sonic travels the world and visits different countries, all based off of real-world locations. Every country has its own unique look, which is complemented by the game's art design. I mean, this game is gorgeous! The colors are bright, the environments have personality, particle effects give a huge sense of action, and motion blurring, although excessive, at times really works. The only thing bad I have to say about how this game looks is a complaint I have for all Sonic games that use the Hedgehog engine. The lighting effects give the characters a weird color. Either they're too heavily reflecting the color of their environment, or their color is just washed out entirely. Sonic Unleashed features two different playstyles, Sonic and the Werehog. During the day you play as Sonic, and at night, time passes naturally with your progression of the game, but you can also control the day to night transition. Each country has at least one day and one nighttime stage, with additional and optional acts becoming available as you continue to progress through the game. Although the game has a linear progression, you don't just go from country to country. You're constantly traveling back and forth to complete objectives. For example, when you get to Empire City, only the night level is immediately available. Once you complete a level in Shamar, you go back to Empire City and the daytime level becomes available. This is an example of an overworld done right. The villages are charming and easy to navigate, and the hub world area provides an opportunity to learn and practice new skills. But because the game doesn't always hold your hand, sometimes figuring out where to go next can be really confusing. The daytime stages is really where this game shines. This is the first time where Sonic has felt right in 3D. From the get-go, Sonic is incredibly fast. This is what the mock sections in Sonic 06 wanted to do. Its crisp and new gameplay mechanics address the problems of past Sonic games. Before, the high-speed sections were just there as a reward for playing the game well. but now it's an active mechanic. The quick step, quick time events for tricks, and the boost mechanic all help the player remain active while moving fast. However, if you hold down the boost for extended periods, it sort of puts the game back on rails. But ironically, you still need to stay active while using the boost even on rails. When Sonic's running, he controls great, but when you're trying to platform or take it slow, he's sort of slippery. I kind of wish there was a button I could press just to slow him down, because in the village sections where Sonic can't run, slower Sonic controls great. This isn't a problem too much because a lot of the platforming sections don't even take place in 3D. Instead, heavy platforming segments seamlessly transition into a 2D perspective. The 2D segments help break up the speed and is a great way to deal with the inherent problems of 3D platforming. The game also fixes past problems I've had with boss battles. Boss battles have always been a weak point for Sonic. 2D boss battles would slow down the action and 3D boss battles would always be screwed because of the camera. Sonic Unleashed takes the concept of running boss battles from heroes and, well, runs with it. Avoiding enemy attacks and hurting the boss are integrated into the game naturally. All in all, the daytime stages rock. There was seriously not a single stage that I didn't enjoy. Up until now, 3D Sonic games have always been experimental, but Sonic Unleashed is the first game to really have Sonic comfortably fit into this perspective. There's constant movement and active participation within the gameplay. No question, it's some of the best Sonic stages in the history of the character. It's the nighttime stages that present a problem. Sonic the fucking Werehog. Instead of fast action being at the center of attention, combat and platforming becomes the focus. The combat system is pretty well made, with a combination of easy to perform special moves and quick time events based on combos. Beating up a bunch of bad guys can feel pretty good, and experimenting with the combos can be fun. And then you play the game for more than 2 minutes. What happened with my experience is I found one easy combo that worked, and I ran with it. Or in this case, I briskly walked with it. When I got bored of pressing Y over and over, I just press X over and over. The problem isn't inherently with the Werehog itself, it just overstays its welcome. Levels regularly last around 20 minutes because you have to kill pretty much every enemy to progress. Screens will regularly be stuffed with tons of baddies, and besides the occasional boss, all the bad guys can be beaten just by punching and kicking.
Kicking? I want to do some kicking!
Sometimes I would just browse the internet while spamming the Y button until all the enemies were gone. The only time where I had to pay strict attention was in the Alaska stage, which takes place on ice. While fighting, every punch will make you slide slightly, so you have to simultaneously fight while watching where you're standing. Besides boss battles, this is the only point in the game where I really had to pay attention as the Werehog. The combat system is built well, but there's no reason to learn it. Using complex combos is just as effective as pressing the same button over and over again. While the platforming is solid, it's hard to enjoy when all you want to do is finish the level. The thought of getting a game over and having to restart a level is terrifying and extremely stressful. The Werehog stages are a chore. This is an example of gameplay being bad, not because it's glitchy or buggy, but because it's boring. I truthfully believe the Werehog could have been handled well, but the levels need to be shorter and I need an incentive to learn the combo system. But instead, it's repetitive and does nothing but make me wish I was playing the other part of the game. Ever since Sonic Adventure, Sonic games have had this air of self-consciousness. The core Sonic gameplay is never enough. There always needs to be unnecessary variety. Variation in gameplay can be good when it complements the formula, like in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but when it's just there to be different, it doesn't help the game. The Werehog concept itself isn't fundamentally broken, it's the execution that's broken. It could easily complement the formula, but the level length and tedious repetition makes it boring. The repetition is just reinforced by the music. Every time you fight a large amount of enemies, it's a shame because I'm a big fan of that glitzy-ritzy swing music. An example of it working is in the boss battles. It's never just beating up the enemy, there's always a little puzzle to it. When the Werehog is engaging, it works, but the problem is, it's almost never engaging. Stop lifting with your back! Lift with your legs! Speaking of chores, you can't just continue through the game by beating levels. You have to collect sun and moon medals to unlock stages. which essentially results in replaying the same levels over and over again. By the end of the game, you need 120 of the sun medals, meaning I had to play for hours just to unlock one stage. This process killed my enjoyment of the game. Each level has anywhere from 1 to 10 medals. Toward the end of the game, I needed to go back and scan through every level, meaning, more fucking Werehog. It's overkill. That's my recurring criticism of the game. It milks itself dry. Luckily, you don't have to complete a level in order to collect the medals. You can just collect it and quit. And the game tries to aid you by allowing you to level up Sonic's strength and other attributes, which tries to make playing through the earlier stages slightly easier. So this is the first time I've ever finished Sonic Unleashed. And despite all of the game's flaws, which ruined the experience of playing through the game for me, I'm glad I played it. I mean, bowling for soup! But the reward of the game's completion is the fact that you get a stage select. Being able to now revisit Sonic Unleashed and ignore all of the bullshit makes it worth it. But I also think that's why people so strongly defend this game. When you have the opportunity to ignore the aspects of a game that make it bad, and yeah, these aspects truthfully makes playing through the game bad. You start to warp your opinion on the game in its entirety. Despite the fact that the story and the presentation is really nice, playing through the campaign is long and arduous. Effort and experimentation was clearly poured into this game, but the thing about experimenting is it doesn't always work. I appreciate the attempt to do something new, especially because they really try, but the repetition dulls the aspects of the game that is truly great. But being able to skip all of that makes it worth it, but you shouldn't have to beat a game before you can enjoy it. Unfortunately, the legacy of Unleashed is outweighed by its bad qualities. Only 2 years after its release, Sega delisted all Sonic games with a low or below average Metacritic score. Sonic Unleashed was amongst several games that went out of print in an attempt to rebuild Sonic's brand value. Many Sonic fans consider the period from Shadow the Hedgehog to Sonic 06 to be a dark age for Sonic. I mean, back-to-back games which were critically panned. During this time, it was really discouraging to be a Sonic fan. But I think it's a little unfair to group Sonic Unleashed in this dark age, because despite the fact that playing through the actual game is a terrible experience, it laid the groundwork for the Sonic brand to begin to rebuild itself. Hey, what's up? Thanks for watching until the end. If you want to start my Sonic retrospective from the beginning, since I started it last year, please click this playlist icon. Other than that, if this is your first video of mine, please consider subscribing and following me on social media for updates. Have a nice day.